Hello, Calc guys. We are going to continue going over the 2016 questions. I really like this particular year as far as the FRQs because I thought it was a pretty good balance of different types of questions. So the one I want to go over right now is question number 4. It's a non-calculator question. It's actually a slope field differential equation question from chapter 6. So it is the most recent topic that we have tested over. This was about the very beginning of March was when we took this test on differential equations. So I'm going to do what I've done in the past, which is I'm going to put up the rubric from the AP, but I'm also going to toggle back and forth between my work so that sometimes I think it's nice for you to see exactly what I did just to get an idea of how things would be awarded with points. So the first part, they give you a differential equation and they ask you to sketch a slope field, which is a really common first question. So here's the slope field. As just like the ones we did in class, we might have actually done this one in class. This one looked familiar to me. They ask for 1 point for any slope that is 0, and your 0 slopes were right on the axis. It's kind of hard to see when you did it in pencil. I can show you my work. And then all of the non-zero slopes was a second point. So if you look at mine, it's a little lighter, but I kind of did some side work, see what happens when I put in 0, 1, what happens when I put in 2, 1, and I was getting slopes of -2, +2, -4, +4, and then my 0 slopes right along the axis are really tough to see. So that's how they scored that one. 1 point for 0, 1 point for non-zero. Part B is asking you to write a tangent line using the point 2, 3, and you're going to then use the tangent line to make an approximation. Really common part with this, tangent lines I expect to show up on the AP test somewhere. So for this, you're going to put your 0.23 into your derivative and get your slope. Your slope ends up being 9. And then your tangent line, they wrote it like this. They got y by itself. I'll show you mine. I just like to leave everything in point slope. So I got my slope of 9, did y minus 3 equals 9 times x minus 2. And then they ask you to use the tangent line to make an approximation at 2.1. So put 2.1 in. You don't have a calculator, so they keep it pretty simple. 2.1 minus 2 is 0.1 times 9 is 0.9. And then you add the 3 to the other side and you get 3.9. So the scoring for that was 1 point for the equation of the tangent line in any form. It could be in point slope, it could be in this kind of semi-point slope, or it could be in slope intercept. Anything. So slope intercept would be, let's see, 9x minus 18 plus 3. So 9x minus 15 would have been acceptable as well. And then 1 point for the approximation. Then you get to the separate and integrate. This is always going to be worth the most points because there's a lot of steps involved. The first step is to separate. You need to get all your y's on one side with the dy, and you need to get all your x's on the other side with the dx. If you do that, no matter how complicated it takes, you always get a point. And if you don't do it, they don't give you any more points. This is one where they just kind of stop grading if you don't separate. So here's your separated version. They gave 2 points for integrating. I'm guessing because they thought each side was a little more complicated to integrate. The y side is not a natural log. It is a power rule. I went off to the side and wrote it as y to the -2 to kind of help me see that. So power 1 greater divided by that power. That's where this -1 over y comes from. The x side is a natural log. Your u would be x minus 1. The derivative is just 1, so there is no adjustment. It is just the natural log of x minus 1. Make sure you put your plus c because you're going to need to find it. You can do that immediately or simplify first. If you integrated each side correctly, you get a point for each side. So 1 point for the y side, 1 point for the x side. If you don't do anything with your c value, if you don't include it, that's when they stop grading. They'll give you 3 points, 1 for separating, 2 for integrating, and walk away. The last 2 points come from finding your c value by using your initial condition and then getting y by itself. You have to get y by itself because of this wording right here. When they say find the solution y equals f of x, that tells you that y is by itself and everything has to be in terms of x on the other side. I'm going to switch to my work. So here is my start. So at this point, I did find my c value. One thing I did, and I don't know if I needed to do it right away, but I didn't want this side to be negative. So I multiplied the negative on the other side. So you'll see my negative is in front of the natural log. And then I put my point in. I put the 3 in here. I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. I put the 3 in there. I put the 2 in here. Excuse me. 2 minus 1 is 1. So you end up with a natural log of 1, which is 0. So that's why it's gone. I end up getting a c value of 1/3. So when I put it back in, I get 1 over y equals the negative natural log of x minus 1 plus 1/3. At that point, I wasn't sure how much work they would want me to do. You could just put it all over one and flip both sides. So you would have flip this side, you just get y, flip this side, you would get 1 over all of this. I put the 1/3 first because it was positive, but it wouldn't matter. They may want you to clear fractions. In that case, you can multiply the top and bottom everything by 3. That's what this answer is. I know it's kind of hard to see with my face right there. Let me move it. So I had that answer. They weren't really picky. When I looked at theirs, it was less work than I was expecting. They left it as just flipping it, and the negative, they multiply the negative later at the end, and that's what made this term positive and this term negative, and then just flipped it. This note would not be needed. It is just for making sure that you're working within the domain, but it is not part of the scoring rubric. 1 point is using that a 0.23 to find your C value, and then 1 point is solving for Y. Depending on how you simplify it, like my C value was positive a third, but because of how I multiplied the negative first, their C value was negative a third. In the end, we get the exact same answer. So again, 2 points for your slope field, 2 points for your tangent line piece, and then 5 points, and that's going to be pretty normal for all the separate and integrate and all the simplifying that goes with that. So that was question 4. Again, score yourself on a 9-point rubric, so you're kind of getting an idea of how you're falling and making sure that you're kind of getting somewhere in that 3 to 5 out of 9 range should be your consistent goal. And we'll keep doing more of these. So have a great day, and we'll talk soon.